Well, welcome to My Harlow My Life, and absolutely over the moon to see it. Joining us today, he's of course our legendary manager, Mr. Danny Chapman. So, how are you, Danny?
Hello, mate. Very well yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. I've got a little bit of uh, I suppose, introduction. I suppose that a certain person sent to me. So this is what he said. He said, an experienced defender who made over 200 appearances for the Hawks. Not sure exactly how many. Asked Phil Towson. First signed for the club in 2003 after spells with the likes of Barnet and Wingate and Finchley. Left the club in 2008 but returned in 2010 to become assistant manager at the end of the season when Kevin Warren was appointed. Kevin Warren resigned on the 15th of the 1st of 2011 and Danny was promoted from assistant manager on that date. Do you remember that date, Dan?
Yeah, vaguely. I mean, it was quite interesting the way it started off because I did, as I say, I stopped playing in 2008 when Ryan Kirby got the sack because at the time I didn't agree. I thought it was very harsh. And at that particular time, I was doing the knowledge, learning to become a London cab driver, and I just took the opportunity to stop playing football and just to concentrate solely on the knowledge. And then, back end of 2009 or early 2010 when Tom and John Barnett took over the club, and they was in a bit of trouble, and basically Tom got together some old faces. So there was myself and Mark Taylor, James Bunn, Spencer Knight, Lee Provorot, to come back and play. And I remember saying to Tom, I haven't played for 2 years, and his response was, well, you'd be better than what was there at that particular time. And we saw that season out, and the club was supposed to go down, and it got a reprieve. And then I spoke to him again in that summer, and he said that obviously they'd parted company with Marvin Samuel, and that he'd given Kevin Warren the opportunity of the job, and he wanted me to be his assistant. And if I'm being honest, Dave, it was something that I never thought about doing. Getting into the management side of it. I was still quite young at the time. I was only sort of early 30s. But yeah, okay, let's give it a go and see how it goes. And then obviously things didn't work out with Kevin for different reasons. And Tom rang me up and said, we've parted ways with Kevin, and we want you to sort of take the reins. And I wasn't too sure, if I'm being honest, because I'd only had sort of 4 months of being an assistant. And so he said to me, well, look, just do it for the time being until we can sort of find someone else. And, I'm here if you need anything. And that was 9 years ago. So yeah, it all happened pretty quick. But, it was probably one of the best decisions I've made in football.
So going back before you start the management then to play for Harlow, I mean, how did that come about? Are you actually starting to play in your playing career, playing for Harlow?
Well, I mean, I was at Barnet as a kid. Well, it started before that, I suppose. I was at Leyton Orient as a schoolboy, and at that particular time, Tom was youth development officer, what it was known in. And so I knew him. I sort of knew Tom from there, and then it didn't work out for me at Orient. I went to Barnet and did my 2-year YTS at Barnet, and Tom actually was then the youth team manager at Barnet. So I knew Tom growing up, was, worked my way through, did a couple of years pro at Barnet, and that never quite worked for me. I then went and played for Welling in the conference for a couple of seasons, and sort of went about a few different clubs. And then one day Tom rang me up and said that he'd taken over as manager of Wingate and Finchley, and would I like to go there. So I ended up going and playing for Tom there for, I can't remember how long that was for now, it might have been a couple of seasons. And then Tom left the club. And again, I just stayed at Wingate. And then, he rang me up and said that he was going in as manager of Harlow. And would I come down there and join him? And at that, what was ironic about it, at that particular time, I'd just moved from Bethnal Green to Waltham Abbey. Mm-hmm. That same sort of time, so it just worked for me in regards to where Harlow was compared to Waltham Abbey, etc. That's how it sort of all started, really.
Can you remember your first playing game for Harlow?
No idea whatsoever.
And
I was thinking about it earlier because you got. I was thinking about the sports centre, playing at the sports centre, and there's only two real memories I've got like big memories I've got at the sports centre. And one was we won. I can't remember what the cup was. I think it was the Norfolk something Cup. We was drawing 0-0, and right last sort of 5 minutes, Craig Charles come on, and he must have only been 17, 18 then, if any of them. And he scored in the last minute, and we won 1-0. And I don't think the club had won anything for quite, a sustained period before that. So it was quite a big thing. And the other one was the only other memory I can remember was scoring 2 goals against Cheshire. There, I can't remember. I can't really remember. The only other memory you have at the sports centre was, it could have been a beautiful day, 80 degrees, sunshine day, but there was always a gust of wind going down the middle of that pitch. Yeah.
So, going forward then to your management career, I know we spoke earlier and stuff about first game, and I've been told that your first game was away at Tilbury, 2-0 defeat down at Tilbury. Do you remember anything about that game at all, or?
I can't, if I'm being honest. The game that I got was Sudbury away with a 1-0 defeat. I can't really remember the Tilbury game. No disrespect, but you try to forget games at Tilbury. Although, from what I've read in that, great, they're getting a brand new stadium and a brand new pitch, which would be great for them as a football club. But no, I can't say honestly remember that too much.
Well, he says, it literally says here the second game as manager was away. He started losing 3-0 there, and then the first win came in the third game with a 1-0 win at home to Great Wakering.
Yeah, I think I do remember my first few games. Obviously, was defeats because I was thinking, if I bit off more than I can chew here. But after we got that first win, I think we went on some sort of really, really good run.
16.
That propelled us into the playoffs over the course of sort of a couple of months of games. And unfortunately, we got beaten in the semi-final against Wingate and Finchley. But yeah, we went on an absolutely brilliant run for a couple of months.
So that the playoffs itself, they must be you must, when you got into them on numerous occasions, it must have been a situation you thought, oh no, not again.
Yes, we had, I think it was something like 4 playoffs in 6 seasons, or I'm sure that was what it was, and we always just found ourselves wanting at that crucial moment just to get ourselves over the line. But don't get me wrong, winning the league is brilliant. It's such an achievement, but the difference of when you do it in the playoffs, of obviously having a semi-final and having a final and having the atmospheres and things like that. If you could guarantee it, then that's the way that you'd want to do it. Just purely for the what I just said, the atmospheres. But yeah, we got close on quite a few occasions, and I think everyone started to think, are we ever gonna do this? But thankfully, I think it's the 15-16 season, we managed to get ourselves over the line.
So going back to the first one I remember, which was of course the semi-finals against Haybridge Swifts and on to Whittam. What was the feelings going into that game on the Tuesday night against, I think it was Tuesday night or Wednesday night against Haybridge, because of course they'd beaten us 3 times previously in the 2 in the league, 1 in the FA Cup. Going in there facing Jody Brown again. What was your feelings? What was the team talk like going into that sort of semi-final?
Well, yeah, we basically used that what you just said as our inspiration, if you like. They'd beaten us 3 times already that season, and it's human nature to be like it. In the back of their heads, they would have all been thinking that as well. We've already beat these 3 times. But I knew before we went out that we was going to win. That we was going to win that game. The mentality of the players and the attitude of the players, you could see that. Yeah, we was going to go and win the game. And on the night, I don't think anyone could ever question the result or the performance, because on the night we was excellent. we basically beat them up for 90 minutes.
I mean, where do you think you won the game? I mean, I spoke to Jody Brown, or probably 2 or 3 years ago now, and he said where he thought the game was lost. But I've got my opinion of where the game was lost. But I mean, what was your opinion? When did you think we've got this?
Well, I think as a manager, you look at the game itself, and after sort of about 20 minutes, I could see we're going to go and win this game. We was on top, we was on the front foot, but yeah, I think one of the biggest things that Harlow's always had, and not so much in the previous couple of seasons for different reasons, but is the supporters. And I mean the noise that they make and the intimidation that they can put onto other sides for a non-league club of this level is quite astounding at times. And on that particular night, I remember everyone behind the goal. And yeah, the noise that they made, it must have, a lot of players probably wouldn't have experienced that kind of noise and in sort of intimidation. There's no other word for it. Intimidation. Perhaps that not perhaps that did play its part in it as well. Yeah.
Well, the answer that Jody Brown gave me was almost quite similar to yours there. Actually, he turned around and said he felt he'd lost the game the minute the players walked through the tunnel, with the amount of noise and the amount of intimidating atmosphere it was when they came through that tunnel, everybody smashing on the side of the tunnel. And all the rest.
There you go.
I spoke to Ray Dyer just before the kick-off, and I said to Ray, we'd won this, and he looked at me as if I was going completely loopy. He said, what do you mean? Yeah. Well, I said, Jody Brown has just taken the Manager of the Month award in the middle of the pitch for the previous month. I said,
oh, did he?
And I said, I'm not being funny. I said, that's it, game over. I said, we won this straight away before all the teams came out. And he actually went out on the pitch and had the presentation for Manager of the Month before the.
I didn't know that. Yeah,
so
I didn't know that.
Around where we won this, because whenever something like that happens in professional football as such, you always see the team then take a bit of a beating, don't they? Just afterwards. But going on to the final, I mean, was that then a completely different team talk? Because of course we'd beaten Whittam twice. So then we're going into that final full of vigour. I mean, Ian Barnum felt we went into it, especially fans-wise, with too much confidence that it was just a matter of turning up and we'd win the game. But I mean, was it a reverse psychology then?
Well, it was literally, spin it on its head from what I said to you about looking at the players before the game against Heybridge, where the attitude and the mentality you could see, we're going to go and win this. Whereas when we went to Whittam, it was one of my big concerns, and I pointed it out to the players in the dressing room before the game. But I remember the players had gone out to have the warm up, and I was in the dressing room putting the set pieces up on the board, and Tom came in and said, "How is everything?" And said, "No, that doesn't feel right. It didn't feel right. There was too many that seemed a little bit too light-hearted." And I think maybe because of the success of the semi-final and the performance that we put in, it may have been a question that there was just sort of one too many, not all of them, but there was probably one too many that just felt that it was ours and we were just going to go there, turn up and win the game. And unfortunately, it sort of bit us on the bum a little bit. But I'm a great believer, Dave, in that everything happens for a reason. And at that particular time, I think it's been documented before, but we just wasn't ready to go up anyway as a club. So don't get me wrong, we wanted to win the game and we wanted to get promoted. But as I say, I think everything happens for a reason. And the time that when we did eventually win and go up was the right time for us as a club to do it. Yeah.
How hard was that day that Lane Eady, of course, made one of the mistakes for the goals, and he was really distraught at the end of the game, and probably one of our best players in that period of time. I mean, when it goes back into the dressing room, how did you pick up the players ready to go again for for this following season? How hard was that?
Well, I think the only you can't change the past, and I think what it did was the players that were retained for the following season, they're the ones that really felt the hurt, and I think that spurred them on even more to improve and try and get us over the line. So I didn't really have to do much. I mean, that group of players that we had at that particular time, You had some really strong characters in that side and in the group in general. So a lot of the time they would motivate themselves. I didn't have to do that much of a motivation to do that. They'd naturally do that themselves. But I think you could see the hurt. I mean, I always remember after the game we all went back to the club.
That's right, yeah.
Mate, right, everyone's coming back. There's no exceptions. And that was probably one of the hardest things that I did, because inside I was, it was killing me. And all I wanted to do was go home. And I think a lot of the others felt like that as well. But once we was back there and you start talking to each other and it, again, I think it just united the players that we kept for the following season. It just united them even stronger going forward.
Well, I remember going back, and I remember John sitting there and going. He was sitting there with some of the fans. Don't worry. He said we're going to win the league next year, and he actually, and he was actually sitting, and that was before he had a few drinks. But he was just sitting there saying that we were going to win the league the next year, and going on to next year. I don't know if it's me, but probably one of the best seasons I've ever seen. That being supporting maybe a professional club previously or whatever else. For me, one of the greatest seasons and one of the most devastating seasons probably I think we'll ever have. And it was, I mean, what's your memories of that season?
Well, that was probably the best attacking side and attacking group of players that we've ever had. And that particular year, the sort of the mentality was, well, if you score 2 goals, we'll score 3, and if you score 3, we'll score 4, because we was capable of doing that. But to get, I think it was, if I remember right, I think it was like 102 points and 108 goals. I think something along them. Well, it was in the hundreds anyway. But neither market did exactly the same. Right, they didn't score as many goals, but they accumulated the points. And again, I'm a great believer in statistics don't lie. And at the end of the day, they had more points than us, and deservedly so went up. But to then go into the playoffs, and I think we were something like 16 points ahead of Thurrock at that particular time.
Yeah, it was 23, 24.
Yeah, I knew it was something quite large. And what a game of football that was on that night as well. But to not do it that year, I think that was a real kick in the teeth for everybody, but particularly the club in general and particularly the supporters, because right throughout the year, and I understand why we're going up, we're going to go up, but it just wasn't meant to be. And as I say again, great believer in things happen for a reason, and there was a reason why we didn't go up that year, because then the following year we got what we got.
But I mean, is it one of those things where you have a team talk in the dressing room before that semi-final again against Thurrock, knowing that it's probably going to be, I could put it, blood and thunder because of what had happened with the Ray situation and them losing points and all that. And I think it was one of the first times we played. I mean, it was all going to be a bit, it was going to be the type of thing coming out. You go in there, you do your team talk, you go out, you kick off, and 30 seconds later you're 1-0 down. I mean, it's just What do you?
It was. I always remember the game kicked off, and the ball came down our left-hand side, and the winger, I can't remember who it was now for them, but he got past Lane Eady, and he put the ball in really, really quick, really early, and Warren Goodiron, who was playing centre half that night, I remember him just sticking the leg out to try and stop the cross, and as it hit his leg, I just thought goal, and it literally just crept inside the post. But sometimes that can work 2 ways. It can work in a way where people go, oh no, 20 seconds and we're 1-0 down, or it can lift the team to think, now, come on, right, it's 20 seconds gone. You've still got another 89 minutes, whatever seconds left to go. And if you looked at the players on that night, you couldn't have asked anything more from any one of them. They literally gave everything that they had, tried everything that we could to win the game. But just unfortunately on the night, it just wasn't meant to be. But as far as the team talk goes, it wasn't. The old scenario with what Ray Dyer found out and then being relegated, it didn't come into it. It was just a case of trying to concentrate on that game, and drilling into the players what they'd achieved that season with the points and the goals and whatever else. And we can't let this go now. And as I say, I don't think that they could have done anything more to get into the final that night. But it just wasn't meant to be.
So in that season, I mean, what was your highlights season for you, games wise?
Oh, there was loads. It's hard to sort of narrow down a specific game. I mean, I can more think of players. I mean, watching Dave Cowley and Jamie Smith together at times was just breathtaking to watch. The two of them, the ability that they had, and we had, you look at the forward line, you had pace right across it, and it was just a year where, as I said earlier, it didn't matter how many goals another team scored. You always had that belief that we're going to go and score one more and win the game. But yeah, as for individual games, I can't really. Obviously, the game away at Needham Market just before the end of the season. Again, I don't know how much closer we could have come because we had the worst possible start, 2-0 down after about 20 odd minutes, and we just wasn't at it at all. And we came in at half time, and I moved Dave Cowley into a more central position, and it changed the game.
Yeah. I thought substitution as well, bringing. I think Reedy had been injured, didn't he, or something, and Reedy came on as well, and all of a sudden, then it seemed to just change the game all of a sudden.
Yeah, they did. They changed the game, and I think did we have one disallowed for offside? I think, didn't we? Yeah, and then Popey missed one just at the end. So again, it was, and I think if you win that, I think you win the league that season. Yeah. But it didn't quite happen for us. But it was just a good season. The club itself was on the rise. The team was doing well. Support was fantastic. It's weird because it was one of the best seasons, but we didn't actually achieve anything in regards of getting promotion.
That said to Ian last week, the two memories that stick in my mind was the Needham Market game away, but also the Needham Market game at home when we had, I think, a scholar in from Southend in Daniel Matasuka came in.
Yeah, Daniel. Yeah, I think he's at Braintree now. I think. Yeah.
And he came in, made a mistake, and Sam Newson got free very early doors. And then after that, I think he had Sam Newson in his pocket for the rest of the game. And Southend took him back a couple of weeks later, didn't they? And put him in the bench at Hartlepool. But what I remember about that game, one if it was the Shane Stamp goal for a start, the diving header, but also the a bit later on was when we lost the semi-final. I remember, I think Dan had been back around the team, or he was watching the game. He'd come out to watch the semi-final, and I remember him coming past me in the tunnel in tears and actually turning around to me, telling me that he's really sorry that he couldn't get us promoted. As he walked past me in the tunnel, and I just thought, so for somebody that was actually part of a professional squad that come in to help us out as such, you know what I mean? And to have that type of
that was what was great about that group of players that year, Dave, was sorry, I can't say it. The togetherness that they had, and you'll get lone players come in sometimes where it doesn't really mean anything to them, and they're there just to benefit themselves. And that don't usually work out, and that's something that whenever we did take lone players on, it was something that I always tried to work out as quick as I can. How much does this actually mean to them of playing for this football club and doing right by the football club? And I think if you look at our loans over the years, more have been in that way rather than they didn't. We've had a few that didn't work out and they've gone back, but you have to look at this past season with Miles Mitchell-Nelson, Terrell, and young Matty Rush, all three lads. Their attitudes is fantastic, and it's brilliant to see that all three of them have been given professional contract by Southend. But Dan was a good lad. He was a good player, and he did what we needed him to do when he came in. It was a shame that he didn't have longer with us, but Southend needed him, and you have to accept that.
I mean, going on to the next season again, how do you then pick up the players in the dressing room, after another game, you've just, it's hard enough possibly at Whittam, but this time you're at home, you've got 100 points, you've got 100 goals. I mean, how did you pick them up after the game? I think we played. Was it? Did you have Thamesmead? Was it our final game? But how did you pick them up after that? And then how did you pick them up again after losing to Thurrock? It must have been a tough time.
Again, I can't say it was tough because the group believed that they could do it. And again, it was another time where it just made them want to do it even more. So it was a case of looking at what we'd done during the previous season and where could we change certain things to make it better that would end up getting us over that line. At the start of the season, obviously the aim was to go and win the league, and I think we were sort of on track for that up to one point where we had quite a bad little period, and then we knew that it was all down to playoffs. So it was, we brought in a couple of different players that obviously freshened the group up, and that helped. But that year that we got promoted, it was another year where I can't. It was between them 2 years was the best group of players that we'd had at the football club. I mean, Mario coming in with his experience and the quality that he had. That made a huge difference, and I think a few of the younger ones, like Lane Eady, where he'd experienced what he'd experienced, that only made him better and made him stronger. But yeah, I just that year, it was always the aim to go on and try and win the league. And when we got to the point where we thought, well, this is not going to happen, it's now a question of concentrating on the playoffs and making sure that we prepare as best we can and look back at the other playoffs that we've been in and see what we could change and how we could change it to try and help the players. And thankfully, we got through and over the line.
And going into semi-final and final, I mean, literally, there could have been any harder games, could they? The two that we had.
Well, a lot of people talk about the final being the best game, they've seen at Harlow in I suppose in my era, if you like. And don't get me wrong, it was a brilliant day, and I think it was relief and joy, more than anything. But for me, the best game of that season was the semi-final against Cray. Because we all knew what Cray was, and we all know that Tony Russell's teams, they play from the back, they try and play through the lines, and there was no point trying to match them doing that. So it was a question of, all season we worked ourselves on. We'd always go and pressure high up the pitch. We wanted to win the ball back as high as we possibly could. But for this particular game, we changed it and we sort of dropped off a little bit. We sort of went man for man right across the pitch, and we identified a particular one of the centre halves to allow him. He'll be the one that we want the goalkeeper to throw the ball to, and then we'd allow him to come out with the ball, and whatever side he sort of came into, our winger from that side would chase him down from behind and force him into making passes, and he, give us the ball back time after time. But for the players to have the level of concentration and to carry out the orders that we asked them to do for that period of time, the performance that night was just, that was right up there with all the performances, since I've been in charge. So that game really sticks out for me as one of the best games. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that season. Do you remember as a manager more favourably the season before than the season that you got promoted? And what I mean by that is because of what happened and the chase, the excitement was almost every single round. I remember me and Tom walking in the press box, walking up and down like pregnant fathers in the games in that season. The points,
yeah.
You know what I mean? But although we got to the semi final and then went on up. Do you remember that more fondly, the season that we just failed, rather than, for appearing games?
Yeah, I mean, as a manager, you always look back at the seasons that you've had, but I try not to sort of dwell on them. What's happened, and we need to move on, because sometimes you can get caught up in well, we've done this, so that's good enough, and it ain't good enough. You've got to keep pushing yourself to achieve more. So they're both massively memorable seasons for different reasons. But obviously, the season that we got promoted, that sticks out in my mind sort of more than any other. I think just for the fact, Dave, that obviously you said we'd had four playoffs in 6 years and not quite got over the line. So to finally do it with all the hard work that had gone in, all the players that had come and gone and played their part in it, it was just nice finally to get over the line. For the club, for the players, for the supporters, for the town in general. So it was a massive, it was more relief. For me personally, it was more relief than joy. Because if we hadn't have done it on that year against Church, I'm not quite sure what would have happened the year after in regards to the players being able to try and go through the whole scenario again. So yeah, that was a brilliant day in football. Yeah.
I mean, hopefully you don't mind me asking a personal question now. I mean, literally, with the situation, I think beginning of that season, or it was the beginning of the season before, we had a little tournament and etc. Begin in honour of your son. But I mean, for somebody that didn't know, and I didn't realise until probably I'd been at the club for a couple of years, when you looked at the stand and named after your son, I thought it was possibly named after your dad or your grandfather or something like that, because I didn't even know what the story was. But when
a lot of people thought that, yeah.
But when did that sort of come from? I'm assuming it came from Tom or the previous owners. When did that sort of they come to you with that suggestion?
That was I think it was the start of the year that the 3G went there. Actually, it might have been the year before. I just we're just talking with Tom, and he just said, "Look, we want to name. How do you feel about us naming one of the stands after Jack?" And I, if I'm being honest, Dave, I couldn't believe the gesture. It meant, the world to me. We'd, been through hell and back for a period of time after, bless him, after what happened with him. So to be able to see his name every time that I walked out of the tunnel and to see it there in front of me, I could never pay back Tom, John Barnett, the club for doing that for me. And that's why I think the club means so much to me. There's a part of me in all of it, being there for as long as I was as a player and then as a manager, and say one of the stands is named after my son. So the club means as much as I possibly could. I always remember actually the game against Church, when the final whistle went, and I just looked up to the stand and blew it a kiss, because it's just like, he's there. So yeah, the gesture is incredible gesture, and for me it just showed what the club thought of me as a person as well.
So I mean, when you lost those two, the playoffs and stuff, I mean, what's the conversation with Tom? What was the conversations like then? Was it, was your sort of concern, what's the money going to be like for next year? What have I got for next year? Have I got the same? What was his relation? What did he say to you in respect of, did you ever go into it at the beginning of the season where he said, Dan, you've got to win the league this year, you've got to get us up? Did you ever go into any of those meetings when you had them with Tom where, you felt, is he going to say to me he doesn't want my services anymore? Because from the outside in, your relationship between yourself and Tom looks extremely, extremely strong, very, very strong. That you would, my personal opinion is, and even for the tough times, people would say to me, do you think Danny will still keep his job? I said, Danny will keep his job for as long as Danny wants to keep his job. That was my personal opinion, because of the relationship you had, the strong relationship between the two of you. But did that ever waver in your mind when you went into any of the meetings with him for the season, the following season?
I think that the difference with Tom, and if you take away, of how close we are, Tom's a football man in the respect that he's played at the top level of English football. Well, before the Premier League, so the old Div 1, but it's the top level of football. He's played through the levels. He's managed at non-league level, so he understands the game. and he probably sees things that sometimes other owners may not see. And I think the thing with Tom, you could never ever get complacent. And I think if Tom sees that you're doing your best with what you have to work with, then there's no problems on his side. If it's a case that you're not doing your best with what you got to work with, then Tom would have no worries about sacking you, and he would have had no worries about sacking me either. But as long as he feels that you're doing the best that you can with what you have to work with, then you'll be okay. And in regards to budgets, we would sit down at the end of each season and talk about it, and he would say, right, what do you think it will cost us to go and have a go at it? And I would say this, and he would say, well, okay, we can only do this at the moment, or yes, okay, we can do this, but we'll try and do something more during the year. It was always different conversations going on, but he's another one for me that probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves. From where the club was from when he took over to where he took it forward. I mean, it's no secret that Magnus Peterson was a big part of the club when they first took over, and that didn't work out with Magnus again for different reasons. So Tom then basically took the club on his shoulders, and the never, you hear it at clubs all the time. I'm sure you have, and other people have heard that, I haven't been paid this week, or they've cut this and they've cut that. Never once did that man ever do that. Whatever you agreed with him player wise, that's what you got, and he would do whatever it took to make sure that the players got what they agreed. So, but just the work that's gone on, behind the scenes, and the money that they put down for the 3G pitch. I mean, that was a massive change for the club. That could have gone the other way if that hadn't have gone down at that particular time.
Sorry, Dan, that season 3G went down. The season before that 3G went down, did you get to a situation where you knew that the money was going to be tight for that season, and it was about was that season about avoiding the drop rather than getting promoted, if you know what I mean, because of knowing what was coming for the following 3 seasons?
Yeah, so obviously we'd had a conversation before that season had started, and he was open with me and said, look, this year's going to be tough, for different reasons, and I knew it was always going to be a season where we was going to be fighting to stay up rather than the other end. But I just think sometimes you have to take the bad times with the good, and we'd had a few good years, a couple of playoffs and whatnot. And the easiest thing in the world would have been for me to say, well, nah, sorry, that's not for me. I want to go and do this and I want to go and do that. But I wanted to be loyal to the club. I wanted to be loyal to Tom because, he'd given me the chance. And I wanted to be loyal to the supporters because I knew what the plan was going forward, and I knew that things would change going forward. And it was just a case of seeing through that year until the pitch went down, etc., etc. And then I knew that we'd be in a position where we could go and have another go at it. We talk all the time about different things, and that's one of the good things for a manager, any manager, is to have a good communication with the chairman / owners, to know what's going on and what's being planned for the future.
So, I mean, is there any games at all from that season, the last grass season, shall we say, that sticks in your mind? I've got one which we had a laugh about last week with Ian Barnum, which involves one of your best friends. But I mean, is there any games that you can think of that sticks in your mind?
Yeah, I think that was the year we went to Malden away and got beat 9-0. That was horrible. that was horrible. That game sticks out more than any. But you know what? The one thing about that year, the players that we had, they wasn't good enough. We knew they wasn't good enough. What they was honest, and they would try and give you everything that they could possibly give you, that they was capable of doing, and you couldn't really ask any more of them than that, because you can't expect miracles. But we had players that year. I remember one Saturday morning, I won't mention the player's name, but he rang me up at 2 o'clock that afternoon. We're playing at 3 o'clock, Gaffer, I can't get to the game today. I said, well, what's the matter? He said, I've got to take my mum shopping. And it was just a little bit like, oh. And that was the sort of players that we were sort of dealing with at that particular time, because that was all we could afford to pay players at them sort of players at that particular time. But that, I probably learned more that season than others than the successful ones.
Well, I'll share a name with you off air later on to who that player was.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I know.
Okay. Okay.
But I mean, the game that I remember we spoke to Ian Barr about last week was the one at Ware, when it was the big 6-pointer that, you know, if we lost it, then we, you know, the likelihood is we could probably gone down or been in that position that Ware we're in. And I still remember it with my father-in-law being there with me. It was a horrific day. It was pelting down with rain. The game was going to go on. And I remember the referee standing right in front of where we were. It was me, my father-in-law, and Ray. And he turned around and he said something on the lines of, guys, you've got to stay on your feet. If you don't stay on your feet, he said, I'm going to have to call the game off. He said, because like it's getting worse and worse. And I think at the time we were on feet at the time. And a certain Mr. Danny Brown came in about 2 seconds later and flying in 2-footed challenge on one of their players, and the game was postponed, and we went on to win the rearranged game. But
rearranged one, yeah. I remember that the ref called me and the Ware manager together and said, look, you know, this is getting silly. Any more sort of bad slide tackles, I'm going to have to postpone the game. And Brandy was standing probably five yards away, and as I looked up at Brandy, he went, I'm going to slide. And he probably went across the whole of the 18-yard box. He slid for a long time. And as soon as he did it, I said, that's it, game's off. And the ref literally put his whistle in his mouth and went, that's it, banned and all over. Listen, Brandy obviously experienced the experience that he had in playing. I think he could see that we wasn't going to get anything that day from that game. Yeah. And the fact, I can't believe the ref even said what he said. Yeah. You know, if that's the case, you keep that in your own head and you don't make that public to the rest of the players and management. But yeah, it was that was the experience that Brandy brought to that side.
Well, I said to Ray, it's not a case that you know, no disrespect. I know they got a reprieve in the end where that season, but you know that one act could have been the difference of us playing 3G in the Essex Senior League, or but playing it in the environment.
Quite right. Yeah, quite right.
Experience that you said. But going in, we've won the league and all the rest of it. I mean, what do you then go in? So we won the playoffs. What do you then say to the players in the dressing room after that? And how do you sort of, you know, is it a case of you and then Tom, or you and your management team getting together, going, look, you know, we've got to improve this position, we've got to improve that position, knowing that you're going into, you know, as Keith has said to me loads of times on the show, there's a big step between, you know, as it was then, the North and the South to the Premier Division. I mean, you know, what was the thinking when that season went on, and was it more money, please, boss?
Well, we actually didn't feel like we needed a lot more. We knew that we wasn't going to go into the Premier Division and go and win it and get promotion, and that was never the goal. The goal was to go in and you know, keep ourselves in there, sustain ourselves in there for a season or two, and then see where we was. But we improved in a few positions, and we brought a couple of players in, and that the first year, Dave, I think we was quite a surprise to a lot of the teams in that division, because it was right up until April. One of the weekends in April, we played Bognor Regis away, and we still had a chance of getting in the playoffs. Then I think we was 4 or 5 points off of the playoffs. And we played Bognor on the Saturday, and then I can't remember we played at home on the Monday, but on the Friday, not all the players, but a load of the supporters travelled up and stayed in hotels in Bognor, and I actually went and stayed up there as well. I think I sat in the bar with little Ray and Tomo till about 2 a.m, drinking and talking. But on that particular day, the referee, I think we had 2 sent off after about 30 minutes, and I think we got beat 2-1. I think might have been 2-0, and that sort of killed us for the playoffs. But no one was expecting us to be in that position at that time during the season. And I think to a point, that's, you know, what happened. The expectation level of the whole football club went through the roof. We'd just been, you know, we'd had had the year where we had 100 and odd points and 100 and odd goals. Then the next year we had the promotion. Then we've gone into the first year into the Premier, and we've just sort of missed out on the playoffs. And I just think the expectation level just went through the roof. In the following season, again, circumstances was that things changed, and our players become better known to level of football, and we lost because we just couldn't compete money-wise with other clubs at that level. We lost Dadson, we lost Reedy, we lost Smalley, Mario. We lost quite a big portion of our, and that's where we then had to look at things more realistically, what we could and couldn't do. And yeah, from then on, it sort of went the other way, as I say, because I just think the expectation level, and rightly so, because of what we'd achieved, but the expectation level of the club went through the roof, and we wasn't quite meeting that expectation.
So you as a manager, and you've had the sort of the really good times, the three almost there, and then you've had sort of a good first year in the Premier. Then you come to the next season in the Premier Division, and it's a bit of a struggle, and all of a sudden some of the fans are getting onto your back, and this and this sort of stuff is happening as well. How do you as a manager then sort of like cope with the fact that all of a sudden you've had such a really good time of it, and now all of a sudden it's going the other way, and then all of a sudden fans are staying away, fans are on your back. How do you then sort of, as a personally, how do you actually cope with that sort of, I suppose, pressure?
Well, you can't lose sight of what you want to achieve, and as I said earlier, sometimes you have to take a backward step to take a step forward. And I know it's two completely different levels, but if you look over the decades gone, you look at the 80s, Liverpool absolutely dominated English football, and all of a sudden they fell away. Then Man United had their turn, and that's now ended. Man City had their turn, and all of a sudden now Liverpool are back. And I think that's what happens. You can't be promotion every single year. Football just doesn't work like that. So again, it goes back to the discussions that you have with the owners and the chairman and things. And well, okay, this year is not going to be what we would like it to be, but going forward, this is what we want to try and achieve. So you have to take that on the chin. Listen, it's not for all managers. I get that. Some managers might say, no, that's not for me. I'm off. I want to go and do more. But as much as I want to be successful and as much as I want to have promotions and things, it was about the football club for me. That's what made it being manager for me more than anything was the football club itself. And it was a case of, okay, we need to try and just steady the ship for a year or two. Until we're in a position where we can actually go and have another go. But in that time, again, circumstances change within the football club, different things in regards to to fan pressure. Look, you're never gonna be able to please everyone. That's just not life. It's not just in football. That's in general life. You're not going to be able to please everyone. What's important for me is that you stick together. More than anything else, we've had good times. We've now got to see ourselves through the bad times. And in general, the supporters have done that. The supporters were brilliant. I said to you earlier how much of a difference they make when they're at the top of their voices and pushing the side on. So I don't, I'm not one for social media, Dave. I don't read social media, Twitter and Facebook. I don't do any of it. So I don't really see any comments or anything like that. People come and tell me times, oh, this one said this. That's their opinion, and they're entitled. They pay their money. They're entitled to their opinion. But if I ever thought at any point during the period I'm not the right person anymore to do this, then I would just step away from it. I would never do it just to sort of get on people's nerves or wind people up, because that's not who I am or what I am. And as I said to you, that my main thing is the success of the football club. That meant more to me than anything over my personal goals.
So I mean, we went into that season. Unfortunately, the club went down. Was you surprised at where the Isthmian League or the FA as such, or stroke Isthmian League, where Harlow ended up in the South Central? Was you happy about going to South Central, or was you expecting to be in the North?
I'll be honest with you, Dave. When I first heard, I was disappointed, and same thing, thinking, what do we want to go in that league for? Not really disrespect to the league, but you're thinking everyone talks about the travelling in it and blah 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 blah. But when I sort of stood back and thought about it, I thought, well, it's a new league, new teams to play against, new players to play against, new grounds to go to. No one knows, who we are. I actually thought it could be really good. And then when I actually looked at the travelling's no different than what it is in the North. Yes, you might have a few more local ones, in the North. But, when you go into Cambridge and Bury and places like that, it's no different than just going around the west of the M25. That's basically, where most of the teams are situated, all just off of the west side of the M25. So, the more I sat back and thought about it, the more I actually was pleased that we went in it.
I mean, I look at that division though, Dan, and it's like, it's horrific, isn't it? I mean, some of the teams that are in now, I mean, it's just like, especially.
Yeah, look, if I'm being honest, the standard of the North is a lot higher than, not a lot higher. That'd be a bit harsh, but it's higher than what it is in the South Central. I think one of the biggest things for me in the South Central is sometimes the level of professionalism within some of the clubs. I'm not going to name any, but one particular game we've turned up and the dressing rooms have not been open till 2:15 in the afternoon, and it, just little things like that where it was, sometimes it was a little bit hard to get your head around. But in general, listen, it's the top sort of 5, 6, 7 teams are good sides and would definitely, no question, hold their own and be in and around the top of the North Division. Yeah.
I mean, we were saying, on Monday night, me and Keith were looking at it, and you see there like St Malden and Tiptree, Heybridge, Swifts, Aveley, Romford were going to money to burn next season. Brentwood are talking a big, Tilbury. And it's like we went for about 10, 12 teams before we sort of stopped and said, well, any of those could actually be in the top, in the top 5 or 6. So, I saw someone put a mock-up before all the COVID-19 started of what the season had finished, what the South Central would look like next season. And it looked a lot better. Yeah. There was teams like Walthamstow possibly going to be in there, and it was a lot closer than possibly what the North Division was, was and is. But I suppose with everything that's with everything going on, where do you see? I mean, we went into that season. Harlow started off really well. It was up there sort of in the playoffs, and as I say, I was unwell. I was looking at Twitter and Facebook, and all of a sudden I see Harlow put out that that you'd left the job. So I was quite surprised.
Yeah, it was. It was something that I'd been thinking about for a couple of weeks. I think I just got to the point where I just needed to take some time out for myself. It wasn't just football. I had some other things going on that I needed to concentrate on, and it was 9 years, long time. Year after year after year, and I just felt it was the time for me that I needed to take some time out and sort of recharge. Because one thing I've always said, is if I can't give everything to it, then I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't just prolong it for the sake of prolonging it. So I just thought it was the right time for me. It was the hardest decision I've ever had to make in football because of how much I love the club, and you never know what might happen in the future with trying to get another job, etc., etc. So it was difficult, but it was. Now I'm sitting here now, it was definitely the right decision for me at that particular time. I knew it was going to be a shock to people and whatever else, but I had a chat with Tom and Tom understood where I was coming from. As I say, it was definitely the right decision, but it had nothing to do with the side. It had nothing to do with the club itself or anything like that, or it was nothing to do with results or anything. It was just literally the fact that for me personally, I needed some time out.
So, question then, next question, I suppose. you might think he might have been coming or not. But of course, then the club put Mark in charge for the rest of the season. I mean, do we, is there a chance that we see Danny Chapman in charge of Harlow again next season?
Dave, I don't know about next season or anything. I would never say that I would never come back because, as I say, I love the club more than anything, and I would love to manage the club again one day. When that will be, if it will ever happen, who knows? I'm at the stage now where I've had me break. I feel good again. I'm recharged, and I want to get back into management. If you look at it this summer, will there be a lot of jobs around? Probably not, because I think that any club that was sort of looking to maybe any club that was looking to make a change will probably give their managers another chance because the season never ended, and rightly so. The managers should be given another chance because you don't know how the season was going to end up. What Harlow's plans are, I have no idea. But if I was needed, then I would always say yes to Harlow. I couldn't not. I love the club. I love the people in the football club. Got nothing but time for the supporters as well. I know, there's been all these things, the relationship broke down and whatever else. I just think we was in a time where I was, obviously, as you said, I was getting a lot of criticism, and I can take criticism. That's not a problem. It's part and parcel of the job. Got a bit personal at times, and I probably put my back up to it. When I probably should have concentrated on the majority that was behind, and not the minority that was getting personal. So yeah, Dave, I would always come back to Harlow. I don't think I'd ever say no to Harlow. But the first thing on the agenda would be is to build back up that relationship with supporters, definitely.
So I mean, is it a case of been looking sort of like seeing that jobs have been available or whatever else, and I mean, but then again, is there part of you that thinks to myself, oh, if I would have waited maybe a couple of months, and I don't know what your situation was, your personal situation was, but is there part of you that thinks if I'd have waited maybe another couple of months, COVID-19 hits, and then you've got the rest that you had got, that you had?
Yeah, obviously with the situation the world's in at the moment, no one could have predicted that. And if we could have done, then I wouldn't have resigned because I would have got the break that I needed anyway. But you can't say, you can't predict futures and whatever else. So as I say, I don't regret making a decision because it was the right decision at the time for me. Looking for jobs, I wouldn't say I've been looking for jobs. No, I didn't look at, the only games I looked at was looking at Harlow's results. That's the only game that I looked at. I didn't bother with anything else. It was only sort of the last couple of weeks of the season that I sort of started looking. I went and watched a couple of games and things like that. But I've not really been looking as such. No, not. We'll wait and see when football does start getting back up and running again, and then obviously you see what comes about and what jobs are about. If there's any interest, there might not be an interest. You might not manage again. One thing about non-league football is, the queue of managers that are lining up for jobs. So it's very, very difficult to get a job at non-league level, and you only have to look at Spencer Knight. How long he waited before he got an opportunity, and I'm really glad that he did because he definitely someone that deserves a shot at being a manager. Yeah.
Well, I suppose on a funny note, it was always one thing when me and Ray used to talk. We'd always used to talk about. I know it's going to make you smile as soon as I mention it, but we'd always talk after the game about who we thought was man of the match, especially in your team. Yeah. And Keith, Tom sent him a message the other day when we did his, and mentioned it in there as well. And it was one of those things that was quite funny because I feel sorry for Ray because he always used to take the brunt of it because he'd come in and tell you where I never used to come. I used to go, but it was a case of we'd sit down, we'd have a chat after the game and say, who do you think was man of the match today? And I would say 99.9% of the time we'd both come up with the same name.
Yeah.
He'd walk into you and Tom and whoever else in the ballroom afterwards, and then he'd phone me on his way home and go, I got absolutely slaughtered today.
yeah, he did. Bless him. Look, Ray, I have got so much time for Ray Dyer. I cannot tell you. He's one of the nicest men I've ever met, and one of the most professional, thorough men I've ever met in the job that he does. But yeah, he used to come out with some absolute pearlers. And he'd say who it was. And, what are you talking about? He was the worst player on the pitch. And we used to laugh and joke about it all the time. But Dave, that's what football is about, and it's about opinions. It's probably the most opinionated sport in the world. And everyone's got a different opinion of who they think's good, bad, and indifferent, really.
But it used to make the Saturday evening. We'd talk for about half an hour to an hour every Saturday, Ray. Whatever, even if it's on his way home or whatever. And about what you said about, he's the worst player on the pitch. That's exactly what we used to say with your answers. Do you know what I mean? Where did they come up with that one? Do you know what I mean? But
yeah, that's what. Listen, that's what's so great about football.
Yeah.
Opinions. If everyone thought the same, it'd be boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So. Look, I think again, as a manager, you're looking at different things. If you've asked a player to do a specific role that might not be all dazzling, but he's done that role and done it to a T, then there's my man of the match. He's done exactly what I've asked him to do, and it's little things that go unnoticed. I mean, one of the biggest players for me was always Fabian Sims. Probably the most consistent player. I mean, I can't talk about before my reign, but the most consistent player that Harlow had, and he did the things that, as I said, they weren't dazzling things, but the difference he made to the sides, all the sides that he played in Harlow, was absolutely massive, and he probably, again, doesn't get the credit that he probably deserves. But yeah, it's little things like that where you as a manager, you see certain things in a player that probably everyone else wouldn't recognise because they don't know what you've asked them to do.
I mean, Fabian's point. I mean, I spoke to Fabian the other day on the show, etc., and he's one of those players. A bit exactly what you said. Probably the most underrated player I think I've seen in the time that I've known Harlow, been involved in Harlow. He's just one of those players that someone's got past him, and all of a sudden this big, massive, long leg comes out and takes the ball back and then sets up play, whatever. And even when he came back for those couple of games, he came back when he was on loan from Chess, and he came in and everybody said to me, he won't be the same player, Dave. He's come back from this long injury. And he was like a Rolls Royce again, just on the pitch, just on there, just playing the ball about and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And that sort of brings me on to a question. If you did come back, say, the season started September, you got a call, you came back. I mean, is there players that you look at and go, they've got, especially in your tenure, forget how old they are or how much money they might ask for. Is there players that, from the time that you're 9 years in charge, is there players you look back at and go, I'd love to have them in the team, and they'd be the first people that you'd call?
Yeah, of course there is. I mean, I think every manager's got, a certain amount of players that, if they move club or whatever, they like, they like to take them particular players with them. And that's just down to the fact that you know what you're going to get from them players, you know what they're capable of, and you know that they'll do exactly what you ask them to do. But, you look back, the likes of, like Lane Edie's, Fabian Sims. I mean, Jamie Smith is probably the best player I've ever had play for me from an ability point of view. Reedy, Dadson Smalley, Craig Pope, Donny Barnard, they're all players that some of them are too old now, obviously, to play now, but they're all players that you knew that every single week you was going to get what you needed from them. So, yeah, I think, if you're going into a new club or, if you're coming back to a club, you want to try and get a basis of players that you know that you can count on, the ones that know are going to promote what you want and how you want it done, because then the other ones that come in, the new faces, they just sort of fall into place. Obviously you'd speak to players that you'd want to bring back, whether that was possible or not. That's obviously a different scenario. But I think every manager has players that they know that they can count on, and players that they would always try and take with them wherever they go or wherever they are.
That's a back four, isn't it? Donny Bernard, Lane Edie, Danny Brown, and Craig Pope. That could be interesting.
Yeah, I don't think you could leave Sonko out of that.
Oh, true. Yeah, no.
I mean, you talk about Sonko, for him to play at the levels he played at and where he played at, to come to Harlow to the level that we was at and to adjust to it the way that he did. It was just incredible to watch. I'll hold my hands up and say, to start off with, I wasn't sure whether it would work because of where it'd been, because all the players that we'd had previously that had played at higher levels, Jamie Smith, Danny Brown, people like that, it all took them a little while to sort of come to terms with where they was and the level of football that they was playing at, albeit they did do it in the end. But Sonko just came in, he just took it in his stride. He's probably the most humble man I've ever come across. Nothing was ever too much trouble. He never questioned anything. He just got on and did his job. And he was a major part of why we got promoted that particular. I mean, you look at the back four, it was more or less Craig Pope, Sonko, Sam Weston and Lane. And it was solid. And, you had Fabian and Cyrus that sat just in front of them. I mean, Fabian and Cyrus, they was brilliant that year. And I mean, brilliant, dominated majority of midfield. And then obviously you had the three up front that could just go and win your game. So that year the whole side was balanced really well. But yeah, Sonko was a massive part in making sure that, when I wasn't in and around the place for whatever reason, that he would always promote, no, this is what we're doing, this is how we do things, and making sure that people stuck to what we did.
Well, one of my favourite games because of a replay, and of course that was the game against Bath in the trophy. What was your feelings there early doors when Sonko goes up, clash of heads, has to come off, and all I remember from that game was me doing the team sheet, and there was a player's name missing off the sheet, and lucky enough that was a player you put on for Sonko. But what was your feelings at that point? I mean, was that oh my God,
No, obviously he's a big miss. I mean, for a lot of the players that was a really big game. FA Trophy, you're playing against a side that was two divisions above you. And Sonko was one of the ones that had probably played at the highest level on the pitch. So you're looking at him to bring other people through. So yeah, when he can't play, he goes off. You're thinking, but then again, as a manager, you have to have the belief in the players that you've got within your squad. So it wasn't a case, I stood there and thought, oh no, that's it now, it's done. It wasn't. It was just a case of, right, he's going off. We need to readjust and do this and this. And that's what you concentrate on as a manager. It might be afterwards, when the game's finished, if you've lost or whatever, you sit back and think, yeah, that was, that did this to us or that did that to us. But I didn't think at that particular point, oh no, that's it, it's all over. I mean, we got a great result at home. And when we went to Bath on the Tuesday, that was probably the first time that I felt like it was a proper away day football since I've been a pro. Again, due to the club, we had a lovely coach. We stopped at a hotel on the way up and had a pre-match meal and things, and it felt like a proper game. And then to go to Bath and win 2-1. I always remember I think we only had about 5 supporters actually, behind the goal supporters. I know there was a few sitting in the stand, but I can always remember when we scored the second goal. And I remember Ray Buddha standing on the tops of the advertising boards, going absolutely ballistic. And I just thought, fair play to them. They've travelled all the way to Bath. They've been at work today. They've probably got to go to work tomorrow morning as well. Yeah. And at that time, that's when probably I would say the club was most tight knit as it could possibly be. But what was also interesting about that night, I always remember, obviously Little Tom Church, who's helped me out for years now, one of the most loyal people I know. What a lad. And he actually came and sat on the bench with us, and he'd been sitting on the bench all game, and then it got to whatever minute it was, and he put the numbers up for us, the sub numbers, and all of a sudden the referee and the linesman are talking, and he's come over and he said, he can't be there. I said, what do you mean he can't be there? He said, well, he's not 16 years of age. I said, well, he's been sitting there for the past 80 minutes. All he's doing is putting the things up. And I remember having to say to him that he needed to go and sit in the stand and to see his face. Like, disappointing. But that, yeah, I mean, the journey home from there that night was just
Great, yeah.
on the coach was brilliant journey home. And yeah, a massive achievement for us to go there and beat them there. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, as you say, it was a fantastic night. I mean, I remember that one. It was an interesting journey. I think it was Mr. Dadson that was late, wasn't he? I think it was Dadson that was late on the.
He's always late, mate. You could always count on Dadson for a couple of £100 a year in fines for being late. Yeah.
And Fabian, I would have thought, well, wasn't it?
Fabian's another one. He's always late as well. Yeah, you get a little group of them that are always late. So what you have to do is whatever time you want them there, you have to tell them 15-minute, 20-minute earlier time, so they're there when you need them to be. But yeah, that was that you always get that every year. Players, you'll get a few players that are always turning up late.
And just you can see how much you miss the place. You can see the passion that you talk about the club and all the rest of it, and you can really see that. You know, it might have been a tough last 18 months or whatever else, but it was a great sort of few years before that as well. And you can still see the passion. And it, just talking to you today just makes me feel as if, going back to my question, about will Daddy be there in September? As much as you haven't been contacted, the more and more I'm confident that you'll be back there in September.
Look, Dave, it would obviously there would have to be conversations if it was to happen. And I'm not sitting in there saying, yeah, I'm coming back in September. I want to come back in September. It would be I still speak to Tom on a regular basis, and it's not something that we've spoken about. We just, we'll talk about life in general and whatever's going on in the world. But I'm at a point now where I'm ready to come back into management, and if that's with another side, then it's with another side. If it was with Harlow, then it's with Harlow. I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm sitting in there saying no, I wouldn't do it, because I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't do it. But there'd need to be conversations, of what's going on, what the plan is, and etc. And I'm sure that Tom would want to know certain things from me also.
So how then you take on another club that just happened to be in the South Central Division? I mean, how difficult would that be, coming back to the arena and having to play Harlow as an opposition manager?
Well, the first thing first, I'm sure I'd get enough stick off the supporters. But look, whatever club you're manager of, that has to be your number one interest and priority. As hard as it would be, probably wouldn't be the nicest of days, and I wouldn't take any joy in beating Harlow. That just wouldn't be the case. But yeah, you have to, whatever club you're in charge of, you have to make them your number one priority, and you have to do whatever's needed to do right by that football club. But we'll just wait and see what happens in the summer, mate. I'm under no rush, to get back in. I'm ready to go back in, but I'm not in any rush where, if a job came available, I just jump straight at it. And you need to think about whether it's right for you, whether it's right for the club, what the ambition of the club is, etc. So we just take it by ear. Who knows when the season will get underway again.
So, I mean, say for instance you went back to Harlow in the future, I'm not saying this time, but in the future, 2 years time, 3 years time, is there stuff that you've learned from your first 9 years as being a manager, full stop, that you would take into, say, another club, that you would do differently in another club, or the stuff that you would do the same into another club, or back at Harlow? Is there stuff that
listen, I think you have to look at each individual club separately, but as a manager, you'll always have your own principles of how you want things done. I'm a great believer in discipline, off the pitch as well as on it, because if you ain't got it off it, then you're not going to have it on it, and for me that's a big thing in football. So I'd always do them sort of things the same. But until you go into a club and you look at the group of players you've got, all players need to be treated differently in the respect of how can you get the best out of them. Do they need an arm around them? Do they, do you need to put your foot up their bum every now and again? It just depends on the type of players that you've got. But what's been really interesting for me, Dave, is since I've taken a step back, how you're able to look at things in a different light to when you're actually in charge of it. So you look at different things, and like I just said about with the supporters. Probably it did get fragmented the last sort of 6 months or so. And would I do things differently if I went back with that? Yes, I would. But it's weird. You don't see that until you're actually, until you take that step back and you are out of it, and you think, I could have done that differently, and I could have possibly done this differently, etc., etc. So I'm sure there'll be things that I would do differently, but my main principles of how I think, a team should be and how they should, behave, etc., etc., with their discipline and their attitudes and how they look after themselves, that won't change. That would be exactly the same.
So with the going around, I mean, when do you see football coming back, non-league football coming back? And when we've had people say to us on the show, it'll be back when it normally starts. Some people said October. Me and Keith are both on agreement. It probably won't be till January, but I mean, at the earliest. I mean, where do you see, it coming?
I actually believe you're probably looking at a month or two later than what it would normally start. I think a big thing will be, obviously, you've got to get the Premier League over the rest of this season, get that finished. And then it'll be interesting to see what happens after that with regards to the Premier League. I mean, things are changing all the time with this virus of what you can do and what you can't do. And I think that if we get another sort of month down the line and we've not had another massive spike, then I think you'll see more and more things. I mean, I read, I think it was yesterday, that the FA have announced that, grassroots football, they can start training again in groups of 6. No contact, obviously, but they can start training again. And I don't think it will be too long before, maybe non-league football and that can start doing that as well. So it might be a completely different sort of pre-season to what we're used to previously. But I think, probably, I believe that sort of mid-July time, it might be given the green light. Okay, you can go back training now under these sort of circumstances, and then if that's okay, and I say that the infection rate keeps dropping, then I don't see why there'll be any reason, sort of a month, 2 months after, late September, October time, that the season may get underway. You just don't know. I think everyone's guessing at the moment of what could and couldn't happen. But I'd like to think that it could get back going again, within the next sort of 3 months, rather than having to wait till January, because I just think, as it all comes down to, again, supporters in without them coming through the door, clubs will struggle to keep themselves afloat. And I just hope that no one falls by the wayside in the regards of that they just can't carry on no more, and clubs go to the wall, because that would be a real shame for football.
Well, I've got somebody. I've been through some of your highlights and record and that as manager. So I mean, you might be able to tell me something's wrong or not. But it says playoff semi-finalists 2010, 2011, 2014 to 2015. Playoff finalists 2013-14, playoff winners 2016-17, FA Trophy second round proper 2016-17. Record consecutive league wins was 12 from the 19th of December 2015 through to the 13th of February 2016. And total record as a manager: played 479, won 216, drew 86, lost 177, and a win percentage of 45.09.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Records are there to be broken, and hopefully in the future, another manager will break them. But yeah, it was, fantastic achievement, not just for me, but for the players as well, to have the most. I think it was the most wins in the season, most games without loss, most goals scored in the season. We was in the Premier Division for the longest period that the club had done. We achieved some great things in the time. Things that I'm really proud of and proud to be part of. So I don't think there was sort of, I think you've got pretty much all of them there. I mean, the one award that we did win, which I was never happy with actually winning it, was we won the Fair Play Award. I think it was the year where we really struggled and had the 10-point deduction. And I went with Brownie, funny enough, to Fulham Football Club to receive the award. I never felt more embarrassed in my life. Fair, you just think, well, we didn't make that many tackles this year, then, did we? If you're winning the fair play award, but no, it was we achieved some fantastic things at the club, had some fantastic times, and I have no doubt that them times will return in the future at the club with the people that are running it behind the scenes.
One last question, because it's one question I've always wanted to ask you, and never had sort of the opportunity to ask you. And I've asked it to other managers why they do the same. So when you're in the season, you're playing, you've got the league to play for, the FA Cup to play for, the FA Trophy to play for. Why is it yourself and other managers, then when it comes to maybe the League Cup and the County Cup, which is more realistic for you to be able to win maybe than the FA Cup and the FA Trophy, do the managers then go out and put out a weakened team?
We've actually never been ones to really put out weakened teams in the respect of multiple changes. We've probably changed two or three because them players need game time, and I think unfortunately it's just the way of life. The FA Trophy, there's a financial reward in that. The FA Cup, there's a financial reward in that, whereas the other cups there's not so much of a financial reward. And I also think, Dave, it depends on each club's individual circumstances at that time. What's your backlog of games? What games have you got coming up? You might have a few players that have got niggling injuries where you think, okay, look, I can rest them for this game because, again, no, I'm not disrespecting any of them competitions, but is it the end of the world if you're not in them? Not really. Are the supporters going to be distraught because you got knocked out of one of the cups like the League Cup or the Essex Senior Cup? They're probably not. They're going to forget it pretty quickly. And so you have to prioritise, and I think prioritising is done at all levels of football, right from the Premier League right the way down to this level. But for me personally, whatever game I go into, whatever side I put out, it's to win. There's I don't think there's a manager out there that will go out to get a draw or go out to lose on purpose because they don't want to be in a competition anymore. But all players need games, and it's not always possible to run reserve sides. Again, maybe through because they can't afford it or whatever. So yeah, you have to give players the opportunity to prove to you that they deserve a place in your starting lineup, and also that sometimes you may just have injuries, niggles, not big injuries, so they're not injuries that are announced in respect to he's injured. It's just a case, well, let's give him a rest because he's got tight hamstring, for example. We'll play him. Let's see what he can do in there. So you always want to win every game that you go into, but it's just sometimes circumstances mean that you're given the opportunity to see other players play.
So, quick fire bit. Who's the one manager that you absolutely hated going up against?
Who's the what, sorry, mate?
So what's the one manager that you hated to go up against? What was the worst team you went up against, the one that you hated going up against team-wise, and the worst ground you went to, and then vice versa, what was the best ones? I've got an idea.
Manager I hated going up against.
For whatever reason.
There wasn't really any managers that I could sort of say, I don't like him.
Not so much don't like him, but didn't like necessarily going up against him.
I think Mark. What was his? I can't remember his second name. It was Haybridge manager before Jody. Mark. I can't think of his surname. Anyway, I don't think I ever beat him. In the whole time that I was manager, that I came up against him, I just couldn't beat him. So that was probably the manager that I didn't like coming up against for that particular reason.
So I thought you were Justin Gardner.
No. Listen, me and Justin have had our tit for tats, if you like, over the years, but there's no hatred there, well, not on my part anyway. And to be fair, when I stepped down, he was one of the first people that texted me saying, mate, done a great job over the years. Wish you all the best. And we've had conversations about players and teams and leagues and whatever else. So yeah, we've had a little tit for tats, but they've never, Justin. is actually a nice fella. But when it comes to football, he wants to win, and he'll do whatever he feels is necessary to do that. And I have no problem with that. Team that I hated coming up against. It was probably Needham Market in them couple of years, because again, I enjoyed going up against them, but it was just the fact that you never knew, they always had that chance of getting beat, and I just think that the what was at stake in them games, and Lowestoft as well was another team that, if I'm being honest, I never used to like going there at all.
Ground.
Tilbury's got to be there. I don't mean no disrespect to Tilbury. It was what it was.
Yeah.
But you needed some really strong characters to go to Tilbury and get a result. Actually had their G laid. I remember going there, and it was Sonko's first season with us, and we've walked out onto the pitch, and as he's walked into the mud just came up both sides of his boots, and he looked at me and said, "What am I doing here?" But that's a lovely place now as well. Now they've had the grass put down. But I think Tilbury would probably be the one.
What about your favourite manager?
I used to have a real lot, or not used to have, I still have a real lot of time for Mark Mosley. Sudbury, just said we went up against each other quite a few times, and had some great games, and what he's achieved with all the clubs that he's been at, it's been quite exceptional. So from a respect point of view and things like that, I've got a real lot of time for Mark Mosley. Yeah.
Team.
Best team that I've come up against.
Yeah. Or favourite team you'd thanks for whichever reason.
Probably Cray. I said earlier, Tony Russell has always had a way of playing, and fortunate enough for him, he's always had the players that are capable of doing it. But some of the stuff that I watched them do was a real pleasure at times to watch. They're probably got to be up there with the favourite teams to come up against for sure.
And finally, ground.
Favourite ground. Probably say Harlow. Nah. Favourite ground. Been so many over the years, trying to work your head through them all. Bognar's a nice place. Just trying to think of the teams we played in the Premier Division. I'll probably go with Bognor for now. Just to, again, get great crowds. Playing surface is always been lovely. I'll probably go with Bognor.
I suppose finally, family all well?
Yeah, all good, mate. Yeah, all good. I've got a 2-year-old that don't really know no different to what's going on at the moment. But Harry, he's been a challenge at times, as I'm sure other kids have been for their parents. But no, in regards to health and things, we're all really good, healthy, and hoping that we can get back to some sort of normality in the near future, mate.
No, absolutely. Well, Danny, listen, massive thank you for joining us today. Really have learned a lot today, and really enjoyed the hour and a bit that we've been talking.
That's my pleasure.
I've enjoyed it. But stay on the likes. I'll give you that plough as well once we're finished. But a massive thank you for joining us, and do wish you all the best. Hopefully you get back in the game really, really soon. And who knows, we might see you very, very soon. You never know. But until then, Dan, thanks, mate. And to everybody else, thank you very much. And next on the to have a chat to will be Michael Long. He'll come on and have a chat with us. And also, as well, somebody that Danny knows very well. Hopefully, he said he was going to come on and going to be filming that tomorrow night in a certain Mr. Junior Dadson will come on and join us as well. So until then, thank you very much for watching. See you soon.